Up next, the Cannabis Reporter radio show with Snowden Bishop. After this message.
Evergreen's calling.
Are you getting enough CBD each day? HempMeds carries the most trusted CBD oil brands like Real Scientific Hemp Oil and Dixie Botanicals to make it easy to add cannabinoids like CBD to your diet. We hold all our hemp oil products to our rigorous triple lab tested standard to ensure that you and your family receive only the highest quality and most reliable CBD products. HempMeds is your trusted source for CBD. Visit HempMeds.com to get our premium CBD oil today. Use discount code CBD20 to get 20% off your first order. And now, broadcasting on StarWorldWideNetworks.com, it's time for the Cannabis Reporter radio show with Snowden Bishop. Listen in as Snowden interviews cannabis industry pioneers, marijuana experts, policymakers, medical practitioners, patients, and other amazing individuals with compelling stories to share. It all happens right now. Here's the Cannabis Reporter, Snowden Bishop.
Hi, and welcome back to the Cannabis Reporter radio show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Snowden Bishop, and happy to be here today. We're continuing our series of episodes on one of my all-time favorite topics, hemp. What I love about it is that I could never run out of story angles to talk about. In fact, hemp is what initially inspired me to immerse myself in the Cannabis Reporter in the first place. If you were listening to my show last year, you likely heard me talk about the first time I learned about hemp. I'd been window shopping on Madison Avenue in New York when I stumbled upon a sale on hemp sheets. Because that caught me by surprise because, like so many people back then, I seriously thought hemp was a drug. My curiosity piqued. I began researching it and was astonished to learn that there are more than 20,000 uses for hemp and that it had been a staple commodity used for medicine, commerce, food, and industry ever since as early as 4000 BC. I also learned that it's a carbon-negative natural resource, which could drastically reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. For every acre of hemp, we could save thousands of trees and eliminate thousands of pounds of carbon emissions caused by petrochemicals. Since it thrives in adverse conditions with far less water than corn or cotton, it's a cost-efficient cash crop that could provide windfall profits for domestic farmers. With so many medical, remedial, and industrial uses, it has potential to boost the U.S. economy and solve some of our most perplexing environmental problems. With all we know about it now, it never ceases to amaze me that hemp was ever considered a Schedule I controlled substance. At risk of sounding repetitive, it's important to remind those among us who aren't aware that hemp is not psychoactive, contrary to what the DEA would have you believe. But there it is, right alongside LSD and heroin, with a handful of well-endowed elected officials working tirelessly to keep it that way. Another bone of contention that would make for some very compelling debate. By the time we wrap this series on hemp, we will have explored all of the ridiculous reasons why it's still illegal. And next week, we'll be talking to a member of Congress who introduced legislation to make hemp legal. Today, I would really like to focus on the legacy, advocacy, and future of hemp. And there's no one better than today's guest to delve into that topic with me. I'm really excited to introduce him to you, but first, Dr. Brian Donna has our Medical Marijuana Minute. What do you have for us today, Dr. Donner?
Thank you, Snowden. Hemp is an amazing substance for all of its multiple uses, but its medicinal value is often underestimated. Hemp is oftentimes widely misunderstood, even by medical professionals, who in general haven't had the time or opportunity to become educated themselves. I often forget that the difference between hemp and marijuana is not common knowledge. That's not surprising, considering the fact that federal law essentially makes no distinction between them both. While both hemp and marijuana have the iconic shape of the leaf in common, they differ in physical appearance. The marijuana variety is known for its delicate stem and soft green leaves. It produces complex flowering tops containing resins that are moist or sticky to the touch. By contrast, hemp has longer, thinner leaves that are coarser to the touch, and sturdy, fibrous stalks that can grow up to 8 feet tall. It also produces flowering tops, but they are proportionally smaller in size. The biggest distinction between hemp and marijuana has to do with their chemical and molecular composition. Both varieties of cannabis contain hundreds of cannabinoids, which, as we are learning, can be very important for human health. The primary difference has to do with the presence of THC, the cannabinoid molecule that produces the psychoactive effect that marijuana is famous for. Hemp contains only traces of THC, so it has no psychoactive effect at all. Both hemp and marijuana varieties have high concentrations of CBD, or cannabidiol, which is commonly used to help with a variety of disease processes. Additionally, a combination of cannabinoids and terpenes, including THC and CBD, can work together in harmony, sometimes referred to as the entourage effect. Since hemp has only trace levels of THC, it won't produce any euphoria and is non-psychoactive in nature. For patients who are new to medical cannabis, especially those who are afraid of the euphoric effect or simply don't want to have the high feeling, a hemp-derived CBD product may be an appropriate starting point. For patients living in states that have yet to pass medical marijuana laws, or for those that are not eligible for THC products, there are companies that offer 100% THC-free CBD oils extracted from hemp stalk. Those can be legally purchased online from anywhere in the U.S. and delivered to your home. I'm Dr. Brian Donna for the Cannabis Reporter. I'll be back again next week with another Medical Marijuana Minute. Back to you, Snowden.
Thank you for that, Dr. Donner. I'm excited to introduce our guest. Micah Nelson comes from a lineage of musical and cultural pioneers, growing up and touring with his father, Willie, and brother, Lucas. He's always been surrounded with vibrant and authentic creative spirits. As a visionary artist and talented musician, he has showcased his artwork and performed in countless venues, spanning the creative spectrum. From his involvement in the psych punk orchestra Insects vs. Robots, his ongoing musical collaborations and extensive touring with Neil Young, and performance art contributions with his brother Lucas, he has performed with various iconoclastic acts at events and festivals like Neil Young's Bridge School Benefit, Farm Aid, Desert Trip Festival, Lightning in a Bottle, Coachella, and Bonnaroo. He's also appeared on Conan O'Brien, Jimmy Fallon, and Jimmy Kimmel Live, just to name a few. While he's constantly exploring the symbiosis of light, sound, and vibration, striving to discover various forms of expression as a creative artist, he also devotes measurable energy advocating for hemp, a passion inspired by his father's support of environmental causes and his involvement in the Farm Aid benefit concerts, which have helped countless American farmers and agricultural communities. Today, he sits on the board of the National Hemp Association and is lobbying for Congress to pass the Industrial Hemp Farming Act. Oh, that's a lot to go over, Micah. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You know, I'm really interested to learn, how is it that you really became so interested in hemp as to join the board of the National Hemp Association?
Well, like all the great facts about hemp and the history of hemp and the truth about it that you stated earlier, I grew up knowing that stuff. My father's work with Farm Aid and my mother's work with the Sustainable Biodiesel Alliance and just their general outspoken actions towards creating a more sustainable world and fighting for the family farmer, and hemp being this amazing asset to the American family farmer when it comes to agriculture and industry and creating jobs and keeping the family farmer alive. So it's always kind of just been something that is important to me, and I've always just naturally been outspoken about it, whether it's in conversation or in writing or songs or pieces of art or whatever I'm doing. It's always been a topic that seems like wasn't getting enough attention, and I'm thrilled that recently there's been a lot of momentum with hemp being reintegrated into the American psyche and people realizing how interwoven it is with our own history, our country's history, and how important it is to, if we do want to divest from fossil fuels and create a sustainable future, or any future at all, how important hemp, the role that hemp will play and must play in that mission. So there's a lot of great things happening, and very exciting.
Yeah, it is very exciting, and so many people, when they talk about hemp, people who really aren't fully aware of just so many aspects of the plant itself really may not know a lot about the environmental benefits. And that is initially what sparked my interest in it, because I've always been an advocate for environmental issues. And I think that
Sure.
that really is an important thing to highlight. And when you're working on lobbying for the upcoming legislation too, I mean, is that one of the things
Right.
that you talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the new bill, the Industrial Hemp Farming Act of 2017, which is HR 3530, we've been trying for years to get this passed. The original co-sponsors are Representative Comer from Kentucky, Representative Polis from Colorado, and most importantly, Representative Bob Goodlatte, who's a Virginian. And his co-sponsorship is especially noteworthy because he's the chair of the House Judiciary Committee. And he's promised us a hearing on the bill, which is huge. And at that hearing, we'll be able to get a lot of testimony, facts, and science-based information into the record. And of course, there are already noises from the purists who don't like the bill, and we've pushed back saying that we can't and we won't get a perfect bill, and if they want a perfect bill, it'll never happen, much like the marijuana bill in California.
Right.
So there will be a coalition of groups working on the bill after its introduction. And so I actually have to update my change.org petition. But our Michael Bowman, who is the former chair of the board of the National Hemp Association, he is going to be very engaged in the committee process via Congressman Polis with the August 2nd 80th anniversary hemp plot in his name, and I have a plot in my name in Colorado, and the 102 acres of traditional hemp that he has growing for seed and fiber. There's really not anyone else in the country better suited to talk about the industry than Michael Bowman, and I suggest getting him on this show too at some point. But this will be the third time that this bill has been introduced, so we're hoping that the third time's a charm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because this particular bill is coinciding with the CARES Act. I'm sure you're familiar with that. Something that I think was originally sponsored by Representative Cohen. And it's actually sitting in the Senate right now after being in committee for more than a year. But that's actually a medical marijuana bill, which should, hopefully it'll pass. I don't know. There are just so many opponents who have political reasons for opposing it. But
yeah, there's always someone with some political agenda behind trying to stop it. That's the only reason it was prohibited in the first place, that it became illegal when it was not only legal but government subsidized every 4-H club in Kentucky in 1942 to grow industrial hemp for the war effort, World War II. So it not only is ridiculous that it's illegal, it was like, it used to be a requirement for American farmers to grow it. It was a cash crop. It was an amazing turnaround crop. Speaking of the environmental benefits of it, it naturally phytoremediates the soil, which means it can pull out toxic chemicals and metals and toxic radiation from the soil naturally just by growing it. The benefits are endless. And, I think once people with their political agendas start to recognize that there is a multi-billion-dollar industry, a lot of them are just thinking about the bottom line. This is a huge opportunity to revolutionize industry, but it's the dangerous thing for them is that it threatens these massive monopolies that have been in power for decades, that have thrived off of hemp being illegal.
Yeah.
So you get this conflict of interest, and there's naturally going to be a lot of pushback, because it's not that they're dumb and they just don't get it. It's like once they do get it, that's terrifying to these big monolithic corporations, because, you know, big oil, big cotton, big chemical, big pharma, because hemp just makes them all obsolete at the end of the day, and that scares the crap out of them. So, you know, I think it's an uphill battle, but the more people like you and me demanding it in the market, you know, we're the market, we are the government, the more the government, the people are demanding that this be reestablished as an American industry, which it, you know, it's our roots. Hemp is American roots. It's very conservative values. It's not just a kind of hippie countercultural thing anymore. It never really was, but it got lumped into that category. So one of the things that the NHA is also trying to do is help in the American psyche distinguish the difference between marijuana, the psychoactive drug, well, not drug, the plant, you know, the medicine marijuana, and its male counterpart, hemp, which is an industrial crop. And you can make medicine out of it, which is, you know, treating epilepsy and cancer miraculously, but it's not a psychoactive drug, you know, the way it's been demonized.
Yeah, exactly.
And, so that's part of the goal, is educating the mainstream culture on that. And because of the infinite ways of communicating these days, the word's getting out pretty quick and on a massive level. And it's been great to watch it unravel this way, and people really jumping on board with hemp. And hopefully this bill will continue on its path, and we can ultimately end the federal prohibition and declassify it from a Schedule I narcotic, this erroneous classification, so that, you know, Fortune 500 companies and these other corporations that really want to capitalize on it and make it an American industry again, they're not any longer scared to do that. You know, a lot of these companies won't touch it because they're scared that they're going to get raided by the feds or something.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, and I mean, for reasons not the least of which are the fact that it is illegal for them to even touch it, you know, without some kind of permit or state regulation. How much do you think that campaign finance reform would help pass some of these regulations regarding marijuana and hemp?
Tremendously. I mean, ever since Citizen United was passed, that was the nail in the coffin of democracy as we know it in America. It's an oligarchy at that point. And when corporations are allowed to, you know, there's no limit on how much money they can finance campaigns, then that basically means U.S. government sold out. Mm-hmm. And it's no longer the government of the people by the people. It's America, the corporation, owned by these big corporations, and they get to call the shots, you know, because America's in their pocket now. So, and for a lot of my generation, that feels like, well, it's done. We're screwed, and voting doesn't matter because it's too powerful, and what's the point, you know? But that's kind of what got us to this point in the first place.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming apathy. And I'd like to think that, you know, Citizens United getting passed and Bush getting reelected and Trump getting elected and all these things happening would galvanize the youth to recognize, like, oh, wait, you know, while we're philosophizing and critiquing the government all day and sitting at home getting stoned and like yelling at the TV screen and stuff and not going out to vote, meanwhile all of the others that are kind of putting this legislation through, getting these people in power that are making these things happen that are pissing my generation off so much, those people are going out in droves voting militantly. You know, they set their alarm to go out and vote. And so they become what is influencing the government. And I think it's a waste of an intellectual mind to just have all these great ideas and, you know, be so aware of how screwed everything is. But then if you don't go and vote and speak out and show up to do the one thing that you can do, which is just cast a vote, regardless of whether you think it counts or not, it's the least you can do. And meanwhile, the opposition is going out to vote, you know, before you even wake up. And so that's part of, I think, what's gotten us to this point, where there's so many brilliant young people out there who can't, you know, who don't seem to get that concept of that they can scream and throw rocks at the wall all day, but it's nothing's gonna change unless you make it change. And that's one tool you have. You know, posting things on Facebook all day, that's not real influence. That's an echo chamber. You know, going out and casting a vote for your local congressman or showing up to your congressional hearings and being really loud and annoying and screaming your opinions, and, you know, just voting for even local levels. That's probably more important than voting for the president or whatever. But I think it's like you can't really complain about the situation at the end of the day if you aren't using your voice in a pragmatic way, in the way that you can be heard.
You raise a really interesting point there. And I think that one of the really interesting aspects of the cannabis advocacy movement is that people who are feeling very passionate about this and learning all they can about cannabis as a medicine, cannabis for social use, hemp for industrial use. I think that it's really driving, really inspiring people to kind of get involved in a way that I haven't seen for a while. But as people wake up to the absurdity of the cannabis law in this country, I think it also could help to inspire people to look into the absurdity of so many laws, and especially with what's going on right now. I mean, you know, people are up in arms about, you know, what's happening in our government right now, and I think that I'm hoping that all of this awareness that we're trying to bring to the table here regarding cannabis, but also all of the different political problems that are getting people angry. I hope that anger can be really channeled into something that'll make for a more sustainable future. I mean,
you said it. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and how much do you think that this hemp bill could really help to change that mindset in general?
I'm so glad that you brought that up, because to me, in such a divided time, hemp, once people are educated about it, and I mean the people, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or a liberal or an independent or a libertarian or whatever, black, white, red, blue, whatever you want to call yourself, like all of these ways that we've been divided, hemp is something that has the power to unite people, regardless of their political differences, because it's a symbol of America in the truest sense of patriotism. It holds within it both these very liberal, progressive countercultural ideals, but at the same time, it strengthens the values of deeply conservative Americans, the rural states, the places where, taking the power away from big government and strengthening the farmlands and honoring the founding fathers and the history of America and like all those things are embedded within this plant.
Yeah. Well,
It's
and
a
also
powerfully unifying symbol to me.
Absolutely. And the other thing too, I mean, this is all of those things are right, but the other thing on top of that is the economic opportunity that it provides, and the ability to produce something domestically that's imported by the billions of dollars into our country from foreign places every single year.
Yeah, like if there was one thing that Donald Trump could do, that I don't think there's any hope for him to save his legacy as the president at this point. But if there was anything he could do that would unify people, he would be really smart to end prohibition on industrial hemp. If he really wants to make America great again, like that is the thing that will bring back jobs, can save the economy. It would bring, I mean, if you legalized hemp and you taxed and regulated it, that would bring billions of dollars back into America. I mean, we're the only G7 nation that prohibits cultivation that consumes the amount that we do of hemp products. Mm-hmm. We consume like 97% of the hemp products that are made in China and Canada. And we could be bringing these jobs to America and to American farmers, to American doctors, to anybody in the textile industry, whether you're a cotton farmer or whatever. Like, you don't have to call yourself a cotton farmer. If you call yourself a textile farmer, then growing hemp will save you a fortune on chemicals and water and like you said, one crop of hemp can save thousands of trees. It requires half the water that cotton does and zero of the chemicals.
Exactly.
So
and it grows in adverse climates, so anybody can grow it.
Yeah, it's a very resilient plant. It's amazing how fast it grows. You can have up to 3 yields per year, and you can use the entire plant. There's no waste from it. Mm-hmm. So it's really kind of a no-brainer once people are aware, like kind of how you were telling that story about how you saw that thing that was made, hemp cheese or whatever, and it piqued your interest, and up until then you thought it was a drug.
Right.
There's still a lot of people who are oblivious to the truth about it and the true history of the plant in our country, but it's like more and more I'm seeing this conversation happening and the stigma of it being lifted, and people starting to, regardless of their cultural or political leanings, really wanting to get behind it and seeing the benefits for the country, which is kind of, that's the ultimate goal, really. I mean, behind all this crazy political division and crap, it's like we all really just want to be able to survive and be independent. And I don't think isolating ourselves from the rest of the world is the way to do it, but this is something that can, without isolating ourselves, strengthen our economy and our environment and make us look a lot better on the world theater. It would definitely save us from being such a humiliating, terrifying, depressing embarrassment on the world stage. We could actually earn some brownie points as far as being a resilient nation again. Yeah. And I really hope that.
Go ahead.
This bill gets passed. That's really the end all be all for a while, at least, until that bill gets passed. There's a big obstacle in the way of things really being able to move. Certain states, they can get DEA permits from the federal government, like you said, to grow it, and that's a huge accomplishment. A lot of states are starting pilot programs and getting back into it. The NHA is actually, we're bringing back the Hemp for Victory campaign from World War II.
I love it. That's great.
We're getting as many California citizens to grow up to 6 hemp plants. You can legally grow up to 6 hemp plants. We've got Colorado seeds, but the idea is we harvest the seeds that we grow in California so that those seeds are now climatized to California soil. And we get enough seed to start the industrial crop and kickstart the hemp industry again, revolutionize industry in California, and be a model for the rest of the country. And it's also a nice little nod to the U.S. government in 1942. A little reminder.
Well, it was a patriotic duty. It was a patriotic duty to grow hemp, and illegal during World War II if you were a farmer and didn't grow it.
Right. It's funny how the pages turn.
Yeah. It is interesting. And you know something else, too? I think there's a little bit of redemption on a global scale for growing hemp for environmental reasons. Last week, I had the pleasure of interviewing Diana Oliver and Bruce Dietzen. Diana produced a film about Bruce Dietzen's car called The Renew. All of the composites were made from hemp. And in light of the fact that, you know, we pulled out of the Paris Agreement, which was just such a shame, I felt very heartened by the fact that a lot of the cities are adhering to the principles that were developed in the climate agreement. And one of the ways that they can do that is to begin to get away from fossil fuels and GMO corn for running automobiles, using those raw materials for fuel, and use instead of plastics, using hemp, cellulose, and I mean, there are just so many uses that could get us away from oil, get us away from cutting down trees for paper.
That's an interesting point. About maybe that was a catalyst. The pulling out of the Paris Agreement could have been a catalyst for galvanizing on the state level real political action and progress, you know, in the face of that. Like, I don't know if I can say this on your show, but my sister Amy has a song called "Shit Makes the Flowers Grow." And
I'll bleep it out.
Just bleep it out. And sometimes I see it as, you know, it's always darkest before the dawn. You know, Trump is just this fertilizer on the garden of America, kind of waking up, going, well, if our federal government isn't going to act on this, then it's up to us. And, you know, that could ultimately, if we survive the next 4 years and don't annihilate ourselves, it could be the spark that ignited the real movement and the change to move towards a more sustainable economy. I like to think that. It's kind of a fantasy, but, you know, when I look around, I like you said, it's like a lot of these states are rebelling and saying, no, we're going to uphold our stance on this and invest in renewable energies and research. And it's really kind of what we needed. It's like the push that we all needed, because as long as we're doing it on a state level, and a lot of states are acting now like they hadn't before, you know, the country is made up of a bunch of states. So it's kind of a snowball effect at a certain point where one state sees, oh man, Colorado's making bank on legalizing marijuana, and oh, what's this other thing, hemp? I thought that was a nasty drug. It was addictive. And oh wait, I'm gonna read this book now about it, and holy crap, why aren't we investing in this? And, you know, then it just starts to kind of domino effect, and everyone starts realizing what's been going on for the past 60, 70 years.
Yeah.
And how much we missed out.
Right.
How behind we are.
Exactly. Well, that's one of the reasons that we are here right now. We're actually airing in states that haven't embraced any regulation quite yet, and I tell you what, I get calls from program directors who get calls at their stations from people who are listening, from lawmakers, people in the community who have influence, from farmers, from all kinds of people saying that they never had any idea. Well, we're bringing things that are actually making an impact and changing the hearts and minds of these people, and it's so gratifying to know that it makes a difference to talk about it. And I think that the more people that we can get to talk about it, especially people who have any kind of notoriety whatsoever and are familiar to some of these audiences, names that they respect, it really makes a difference, I think, to just get out there. And so that's why, I was really, really happy to hear that you were serving on the board and advocating on such a big level that way, because I think it does help to draw some attention. And for your own artistic history, as well as the legacy that you have from being from a family of music makers who have made a name for themselves advocating for the farmers and for the environment. So, kudos to you for doing it. It's
well, I've always
phenomenal.
felt that having the opportunity to be an artist as a living, like that's a total blessing that should not be taken for granted. And I feel like with that, with power comes responsibility. Having a
Absolutely.
voice, to me, I feel responsible to use it in a way that is positive and doing something to contribute to the betterment of people's lives, if I can, beyond the abstract way that music helps. I think music is invaluable and art is invaluable, and we need way more funding for that, because when you have more funding for the arts and creativity in general, when you're teaching kids how to be creative, that skill that's developed can be applied to anything they do in life, whether they're business owners or whatever. It's not just about painting or singing or playing an instrument. Those activities, especially at an early age, develop the ability to think for yourself, to come up with ideas, to be creative, to not just go with the program and be a drone. And the last thing we need right now is more drones. We need people coming up with creative ideas and thinking outside of the box and thinking critically about what they're seeing too, and not just taking everything at face value and taking everything they see as truth, and doing their own research and taking the initiative and discovering who they are as an individual. And the arts is something that is that's what it is, really, like, doing those activities, whatever it is that you get off on, creatively, it's like you're developing this way to know yourself deeper, and therefore become a stronger individual American or human, and someone who can then better contribute to society as a whole. It all starts with the individual. So to me, being able to make a living doing what I love, I feel like, okay, as much as I'd love to just, play songs and smoke weed all day and float around in a bubble, it's like I want to use that influence to help others, who don't have that gift or don't have that opportunities that I've had. And so hemp to me is like if I'm going to really fight for something, that's one of those secret weapons to me that just, if we can solve that thing, then it eliminates a lot of other issues on the list of issues that we have in America and in the world. If we can liberate that crop, I'm not saying it's the, someone told me recently, there's no silver bullet to solve all the problems. It's silver buckshot. It's a lot of little things. But in order to really be effective, I think we have to pick something and focus on that. And to me, the hemp thing is like a big chunk of buckshot that can take out a lot of whatever, ducks or quail or targets. I don't know.
Yeah, and you're right. It's not the silver bullet that's going to solve every single problem, but what it will do is it'll give us options in the long run to solve some of those problems. Like, for instance, people complain about the expense of renewable energy and fuel. Well, hello, hemp is an affordable way to achieve that goal. And, how about the brown fields that are contaminating groundwater? Hemp remediates brown fields. There are problems that can be solved with hemp, no doubt. And also, eliminating the toxic pharmaceuticals that are killing children who have epilepsy and autism. It's just phenomenal what that'll do. And hopefully over time, what it'll do is take away some of the power, some of the financial voting power from campaign finance contributions that have bought our government in so many ways. And so it is a step in the right direction, and it's awesome. And I wanted to say something else too about the life of art. And I was so disappointed to hear that funding is going to be cut again for National Endowment of the Arts, and that arts programs in schools keep getting cut deeper and deeper. So now, it's all science and math. But the one wonderful thing about art is that it creates empathy, and it's a therapeutic outlet. And when people aren't focused on computer games and maybe they don't have the nature that some are entitled to or able to have during their youth or what have you, art is an outlet that allows them to live vicariously with empathy. And and that's so related to this mission of yours and this mission of mine as well. Because I think that once we can start opening our eyes to the truth of what's going on and solve one problem, make hemp legal as it should be, just like corn, and take away some of the poisons that caused it to be legal in the first place. I just think that we're going to create a more empathetic world, and the same goes too for marijuana legalization. I understand why some people think it's a moral issue about drugging children and that sort of thing. But
they drug their children all the time.
All the time with legal drugs. Tylenol kills people. I mean, it's an arcane, ridiculous law that never should have happened, and it happened for political reasons. It happened to oppress, certain groups of our population. And I think that just by addressing this and talking about it and normalizing the conversation about it, that in itself is also going to create another path of empathy and certainly elevate the consciousness of America in a lot of ways. Not to sound too esoteric about it, but
true. And your show is great because, like you said, people who wouldn't normally get this information are hearing these things, and knowledge is power. When you're talking with your friends and they're clearly clueless about, what hemp is or marijuana is, and now you have the tools to say, actually, I guess you didn't know this, but, blah, blah, blah. And that's something that, having that knowledge, you can then spread that knowledge and empower them.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful daisy chain of people becoming aware of the things that are available to them, the tools that we've had for thousands of years, and then we all start to realize how we've been scammed so heavily, and it then ideally one starts to question a lot of things about their daily rituals, about what they're giving their money to, what they're supporting and why. And it goes back to the idea that teaching creativity and funding the arts exercises your critical thinking muscles and recognizing when something is total bullshit, and even if it's legal or it's widely accepted or it's like being pushed through advertising or the school system or the culture, it's like taking a step back and being able to look at that from a bird's eye view and say, does this make sense or is this completely insane?
Yeah.
And I think the more people become aware of things like hemp and the how we live in a country that has a for-profit prison system and a disease control industry masquerading as a healthcare, the more we start to realize that it's all completely insane. And that's like, if that doesn't galvanize people to go, hold on a sec, we need to talk about this and do something about it, then and here you go, here's hemp. This is the topic. This is the tool we have that can shed light and eliminate this insanity and get us back to a level playing field again. Maybe, if we're lucky and we do it right, we can ride this hemp spaceship into a future that is much less insane and just makes a lot more sense for everyone.
Yeah.
And gets back to the original American idea, the value that the country was founded upon in the first place. So kudos to you for having a show like this.
Thank you.
And creating media like this that spreads this information to people who need it.
Yeah. I mean, hemp is as American as apple pie and the Declaration of Independence. I did a show on that topic on the 4th of July, and it's like it's our patriotic duty to legalize hemp, and just to get back to re-legalize it, and get back to what the founding fathers intended for this industry, because it was so important to them. And all of them were hemp farmers, and there's evidence in George Washington's diaries that he actually medicated with regular old marijuana tea, Oh, yeah. And it was just such a part of our culture for so long, and it's such a shame that so many lives have been destroyed because it's been illegal for so long. It's incredible, but I could go on about this for hours, and it's been a great conversation.
Well, it's like I like that we're at least not just preaching to the choir here. That's something that I often find is happening, and I appreciate that you're broadcasting to areas that haven't really gotten on board with that. Yeah,
thank you. Yeah, that was our whole intention, and people thought we were nuts for taking it to conservative talk radio, and I'm like, well, we'd be crazy not
that's
to.
Where it needs to go. No, conservatives love hemp.
Yeah.
I mean, I know a lot of conservatives who are like, they realize that hemp is the most patriotic thing you could grow, and to legalize it is like, a big finger to the federal government and or the powers that be.
The powers controlling the federal government.
The powers controlling the federal government that have it in their pocket, and to get back to the land and the roots of America. without the slaves, of course. But that's not, like I know so many conservatives who recognize the American patriotic values of hemp and the money there, the incredible amount of economic gain that one could have from legalizing this crop, even in their own state. And maybe it has to start on a state level for everyone until the feds finally go, oh, okay, yeah, all right, okay. I don't know what it'll take, but it's not an overnight thing. But I think you're right that the red states, or whatever you want to call it, like those folks need to hear this the most, because a lot of those people don't realize that it's not just this kind of liberal hippie druggy thing. It's a really it's a conservative.
Well, they have the most to gain. They have the most to gain.
Rural
the agricultural states have the most to gain for sure.
Exactly. They're looking for jobs. They're trying to find something that makes sense to them, that is still sustainable and fits in with the direction that the rest of the country is trying to go. Moving away from fossil fuels and coal and these things that a lot of those states are funded by, and so this is something that still maintains the agricultural roots of their region.
Absolutely.
But it's in with the goals of the country at large.
Yeah. So.
Something that they all need to hear and recognize, I think,
yeah.
and take their lives and empower themselves with that.
I'm getting a signal from our producer that it's time to wrap it up. I can't believe this went by so quickly, and I'm so grateful to you for sharing all you know. I mean, this is fantastic, and I'd love to bring you back on after you testify in Congress. I'd love to hear how it goes, and I hope that you'll send me an email or something and just let me know how it went. I'll be looking for it in the news as well. But really, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Michael Bowman, our other board member who was the former chair of the NHA, he will probably be the one actually there testifying. And I'm going to try to be there if I'm not on tour.
Okay. I'll look, and then I'd love to have him on too. So.
I'll definitely give you his info. I think he would be a perfect guy to have on your show, because he actually came from conservative background, a very rural conservative background, and is the biggest champion for legalizing hemp that I know.
Yeah.
So.
And next week, actually, we're talking to Congressman James Comer, who is one of the co-sponsors of that bill.
Yeah.
So that'll be an interesting conversation too, and talk about the national efforts there. But anyway, so here we go. Thank you again, Micah, and it is time for us to say goodbye. I would once again like to personally thank my guest Micah Nelson for sharing his insights and knowledge with us today. And if you want to learn more about the National Hemp Association or the creative work that he's doing, please visit us online at thecannabisreporter.com and click broadcast to find today's episode. I will post his bio along with information and a link to his website. We have a lot of people to thank here today. First, I'd like to express our gratitude for our radio sponsors, HempMeds and HealthTerra. We could not be doing this without you. I'd also like to thank Dr. Brian Donna for a Medical Marijuana Minute update, Eric Goodall, the composer of our theme song Evergreen, our producer Ed and the team here at Star Worldwide Networks for making us shine, and our program director Steve at XRQK Radio Network and Passionate Certification Centers for sharing our show. And last but not least, thanks to all of you for listening around the nation. Tune in again next week, same time, same place, for another episode of the Cannabis Reporter Radio Show. I'm your host, Snowden Bishop, and until we meet again, be safe, stay informed, share what you've learned, and make it a great day.
Evergreen is calling, evergreen is always where I feel fine. The blue is blue.
Are you getting enough CBD each day? HempMeds carries the most trusted CBD oil brands like Real Scientific Hemp Oil and Dixie Botanicals to make it easy to add cannabinoids like CBD to your diet. We hold all our hemp oil products to our rigorous triple lab tested standard to ensure that you and your family receive only the highest quality and most reliable CBD products. HempMeds is your trusted source for CBD. Visit HempMeds.com to get our premium CBD oil today. Use discount code CBD20 to get 20% off your first order.
You're busy, running around from work to kids to evening events. Healthcare shouldn't be adding to your daily running around. Simplify your healthcare with Healthterra for only $15 per month per individual or $18 per month per family with up to 9 kids, by the way. You can eliminate doctor office visits with 24/7 access to doctors via phone, video, or the mobile app. Not only do you get prescriptions filled over the phone, but save up to 85% on those prescriptions. This is a supplemental plan and not insurance. Healthcare made easy. Healthterra.com.